Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, welcome. So those of you that don't know me, my name is Karen Alarcon. I am the secretary of this UVARC group. And so we're going to go ahead and start off with upcoming events. And so I'm going to turn the mic over to Carl, but he's walking the wrong way.
Oh, no. Okay.
Just hit the down here.
Let me give Beth and Joanne their tickets.
He'll take it from you.
All right, what do we got going? The arrow key. Down arrow? There we go. Ice cream social, that's just so old news.
How many people showed up?
I think we had 47 people show up for that event. It was actually a pretty decent turnout, yeah. And of course, I think it was the 9th or 10th year in a row that I pounded that big banana split. Holy cow, there should be a law. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Matt's not here today, is he? No. Matt was sitting next to me. He tapped out. Maybe he'll watch this, yeah, on the reruns. He tapped out. He got close, but he tapped out. Anyway, so I had to give him a hard time. He's my neighbor, too. Anyway, so the next big deal here is, does it say the date? Oh, yeah, it does. October 14th, Saturday. That's the lunch bunch that Lila's been announcing over at Brick Oven in Provo. And we've eaten there quite a few times. That's a nice place. They got a great salad bar there.
Are you sure you want to do it on that day? That's the day of the eclipse.
You know, the eclipse happens during the day. This is in the afternoon, so I don't think we'll have that big of a problem. I don't know. 10 a.m.? 10:30, yeah. 10:30, okay.
Eclipse is over by then.
Not here, yeah. Anyway, it wasn't my event, but anyway, Lila will be there. I think, you know, knowing the size of their salad bar, I will probably be there too. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about is the Christmas Adam and Christmas Eve. That happens to be a Saturday and Sunday this year for the Santa Net. It'll be on the 7-6 repeater. We always open up the 90-90, so if you happen to be out of town, you can get on the Star K7 PB Star on Echolink. If you need to get on or whatever, come one night, come both nights, bring the kids, bring the grandkids. That's always a really fun event. And if nothing else, it's fun to listen to. Anyway, come take care of that. Okay, this isn't on my agenda, but can I say one more thing here? Okay, let me put on my serious hat first. We talked about this on the 7-6 net last night a little bit. I spent a couple hours going through the 7-6 rolls. We have about 400 people on the 7-6 roll since Richard started that group, 12, 13 years ago. And it's just kind of evolved. We never you got to die to get off that list unless somehow you really request it. You got to die to get off the list. And we have about 15 people, maybe it's more than that now. The new Hamnet. We have about 15 people on that silent key list that were previous members of that group. But anyway, as I was going through the rolls, and I knew there was a lot of people that have upgraded, I was surprised at the amount of upgrades. There used to be way more technicians than there were anything else. Now I think we got way more generals than anything else. And there's a lot of extras on that list. So I was really proud to go down and look up every single person on our 7-6 rolls, whether we've seen them or not in years, and do that upgrade. But having done that, going along that way, I ran into some people that had expired licenses. And some of them I think I talked to within the last year. Actually, I telephoned one of them, actually I telephoned Noji that on one of his family members. Then there's a bunch of them that are close for this year, and we'll notify them as we catch them on the rolls. But you know, if you don't know how to do it or whatever, ask one of us, or I'm sure there's how-tos on upgrading it and stuff like that. Go and upgrade your license, or not upgrade, but renew your license. It costs nothing. I found the head of the emergency management department at the U I found his license not updated. And so I got a nice little thank you letter for reminding him, because we don't get the reminders. Yeah, Joe?
In the October QST, and I posted the pictures on the UVARC page, the 2 pages that talk about how to renew your license, because you have to do it online.
Okay, and I know there's a little bit of extra stuff you gotta do if it's late. So if you wanna do it the easy way, do it ahead of time. And I think I thought there was a 90-day grace period, but somebody says that there's a 2-year grace period, up to 2 years. After that, it's impossible. But I think within the first year, it's a little bit easier. So, but don't let it go that long. Go, and when you're in there, upgrade where you're at. What I found was many people had even gone in and upgraded maybe where they're at, but it would say something like Orem, but then it would have the county where they used to live. Or it would say they moved to Arkansas, but this still shows them in Utah County. Try and get all that stuff corrected with the FCC. Yeah, Gary.
I just renewed mine, and I was having trouble, and so I called, and they really walked me right through it. And it was good. And it's not, it is not, what can I say, easy to meander without some help.
Yeah, and Scott Lott, yeah, that's his last name. He talked to us on the net about that last night too, because he had just done a renewal, and he said he had trouble, and he called the FCC, and he says they were very kind and very generous with their time to get him through that. He said he wasn't very computer literate, and so they got him right through it. Go ahead.
Just a reminder though, even though there's a 2-year grace period to keep your license and privileges, once your license has expired, you cannot transmit.
Oh yeah. I think we all know that from having taken the tests and studying for our licenses. I think we all hopefully know that. But if somebody doesn't know and they accidentally do, and we know about it, we mark it on the roll, and we're going to remind them, we can't talk to you till you get your license renewed. Now I called George, WE7TOY. I called him and says, dude, I know you talked to me here a couple months ago. Your license is expired. And I got a voicemail from him this morning saying, oh, thanks for letting me know, I got it taken care of. So, it's not hard to do these things if we just know in advance, and we're not going to get reminders. And so that's what I'm here to do as a reminder. Go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, just an observation. Upgrading your license does not extend that time. So I think a lot of people, get 3 or 4 years down the road and upgrade, then think they've got 10 years after that. That's not the case. If you get a new call sign, that will extend it for the next 10 years, but upgrades don't.
Well, let me tell you one more thing having to do with that. I found a lot of husband and wife deals like that, and the wives was expired, and the husband's was not, because he got an upgrade or a vanity or something like that, and he pushed his up a couple of years somehow and left her in the dust. And so take care of your wives and significant others, and you got family members, remind them too, because it's easy to forget. And so I'll get off my soapbox right after Joe talks.
He basically just said what I was going to say, and keep in mind, you have to renew your license. If you update or upgrade without a license, without a call sign change, that doesn't extend to 10 years. You have to renew.
And for those who don't know how, I'm sure everybody in this room does, but I'll say it. Go to QRZ.com and use the lookup. Even if you don't use your website in QRZ.com, there's a lookup page, and you can just look up call signs. I do it going down the road. I do it. If I see a call sign on somebody's license, I'm like, who is that? And I'll look it up real quick. So it's not that hard to do. So, and if you need to, it's under somebody asked me this last night. It's in the details on the QRZ.com page. And if you got a license, you got a page. It's kind of fun to update it and know that you have your own web page.
He's talking about your FRN number there.
Yeah, we were talking about our FRN number, and it's on there too, on that page. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you for letting me say that. Appreciate
You
it.
didn't cover the swap meet either.
Who? Oh, it wasn't on there.
If you're an ARRL member, they will remind you when you need to renew, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, you did say that. Oh, one more thing. Noji just reminded me. We had, give me the numbers on it. I mean, how many people did we have show up? How much money did the club make? And that's our annual fundraiser. Do you know any of that?
Yeah, we made $490.
$490, if you divide that by 5 or 10, you can figure out that, hey, there was a lot, I thought we had a good success considering it was conference weekend, considering it was first day of hunting season, and we grilled Noji about not doing that next year, but anyway.
We handed out 82 tickets.
82 tickets? So, okay, I thought it was a pretty good, pretty successful considering everything the way it was. Anyway, great swap meet. I just thought it was a lot of fun. I met a few people that I hadn't ever met before, so that's always fun to me. Anybody else have anything? Do I see another hand? Or was that just Joe waving? Okay.
Okay, so next up is Michelle. Boy, Michelle, your hair's got a lot shorter. Oh, yes.
Now, Michelle's at home with a sick grandchild tonight, so she asked me to step in for her. Sorry, you got to look at my ugly mug instead of her pretty face. Okay, next November 2nd, our next meeting will be the do-it-yourself night. We'll do it right here. When we come here, the chairs won't be like this. We'll have tables out and all that stuff. And do we have a list of topics yet?
No, but it'll be pretty much the same as last year.
It'll be pretty much the same as last year. And if you weren't here last year, come find out what's going on this year.
Yeah.
And it'll be start here at 6:30 with Eyeball QSO. And then we got the annual Christmas potluck on 7th of December, Pearl Harbor Day at 6 p.m. The Orem Friendship Center down here, about 93 North, 400 East. I'll make sure she gets that list posted this weekend.
Thanks.
Well, I'll ask her.
The sign-up list.
Okay. So Noji's up there. Another thing on the licensing, well, you would think 90-day, my license expires the 4th of January. So would you think that I can go on and renew my license?
Not yet.
No, 90 days. They mean 90 days. I can't renew till tomorrow. So, and field day, winter field day coming up in January, and summer field day in June.
Thanks, Joe. Michelle.
Yes.
I like it better when Michelle did it.
Right. Okay, I just want to remind you that we do have some exam sessions and ham radio courses coming up. So for the exam sessions for this month, October 18th and October 21st, and those are over at the Provo Fire Station number 2 by Canyon Road. So if you need to take an exam to upgrade or whatever, or if you're brand new to ham radio, if you know someone who needs to, there you go. And then if you want to take a technician course, there's one going on right now, so it's almost over, but the next one here in Orem starts on January 23rd, so if you want to wait till that long, you can do that. But there's courses you can take elsewhere and other times as well. Dave is not here, and he's asked me to fill for him, and so there are other ham radio exams and courses coming up. That's in Eagle Mountain. So one exam happens on November 4th, and these all will apply to anyone who wants to upgrade at any level. So if you're a general who wants to get an extra, any one of these will apply. So over in Eagle Mountain City Hall, just email Dave if you want to get involved, KI6OSS 63665. Also, technician course, he's got one starting tonight. So if you want to go into that one, you've got 4 minutes to make it over there. So there you go, Eagle Mountain City Hall, there again. At any rate, so that's it for courses.
Noji,
Ma'am.
fees for the courses.
Those are all free. Oh, well, okay, the ones, thank you. So Jamie is asking how much the courses cost. The ones in Orem are $10. The ones in Eagle Mountain are free of charge. Thanks.
You changed it.
I did. When I asked you, I'm going to change it right now.
Okay, so to talk a little about service, UCares. So that's our Aries group here in Utah County. We're always looking for new ham radio operators to join. We practice in getting up on the radio and to be prepared for emergencies. So we do have our ARES Tuesday night nets. They are every Tuesday night at 9 o'clock. They are on the 14734. It's a positive, and it's at 100 hertz tone. And we do link that repeater, and it changes. So a lot of times it's linked with the 2.3 repeater, the 145.23. That's so that we can get coverage between here and Eagle Mountain, because we do have a large ham radio base out into Eagle Mountain. And then we also have the 147.220.
That's generally not linked.
Okay. Where's that one
It
at?
also isn't an area, it isn't a UCARES repeater, it belongs to Eagle Mountain.
Okay. And then we have a repeater that we occasionally use that's on top of the hospital in Provo.
4547.
Yeah, I just have to think hospital for a minute because I've got too many hospitals I deal with. So we'd love to have if you want to join UCARES, again, get up on our UCARES website, which is the ucares.org, and there's a sign-up sheet up there. We'd love to have you come participate with us. And moving on to that, we'll turn the time over to Chad.
All right, we've had a lot of testing going on over the last month and a lot of people that have gotten their licenses. So here we have all of our new hams. Do we have any new hams here tonight? Stand up. Congratulations. Tell us your names real quick.
My wife, Phyllis, she's not a ham, but she loves the hobby, and so we've done it for years.
Cool, and what's your name and your call sign?
Mike Newman, KI6FPE, we're from the Bay Area, we lived here about a year now.
Oh, sweet, thanks, Mike. All right, and this YL over here? Yeah, introduce yourself.
KK7ORG.
Cool. Oh, that's a good one. And what was your name?
Annie Wilkinson.
Annie. Congratulations, guys. Good job. We also had several people upgrade. Do we have any of our upgrades here tonight? Oh, stand up.
You could route it out.
All right. Congratulations, and thanks for doing the extra work. All right.
One more thing. We're going to go back to the original
Chad?
page.
Yeah.
There was another upgrade that, it's not on there, maybe they don't have didn't get the announcement, but there was a new ham last month, Trent Holmes. He got his general down at the swap meet too.
Oh, cool.
So I know there's quite a few people that
Yeah.
tested down there, maybe we don't have a complete list.
Yeah, he was on the last
No, we
month's
don't
thing.
have 8 people.
Can you go up one?
Yeah, but he got his general, he went from
Up
tech to
there?
general in a month.
One more. Yeah, so this lady named Bryn Foote, by the way, that is Taylor's wife.
Oh, cool.
And yep, she just got hers too, so congratulations.
Cool.
Taylor.
Congratulations to Bryn as well. All right.
One more thing that we did wrong.
That's up to Karen.
Yeah? Go right ahead.
Remember we talked about doing that thing in the park last month, some of you probably recall. There's still enough time, we got a month before daylight savings time, and Matthew and I are willing to go out, if somebody wants to sponsor a park, to go out on a Wednesday night and set up our HF stuff and do a little show and tell. If anybody's got anything like that in the next month, we can probably make time. We like to do it on Wednesday night because there's a net on that night, and we can incorporate the net into the VHF side of it and stuff like that. So if anybody's got any ideas or knows somebody that wants to do something like that, we'd be willing to do that again on a Wednesday night between now and daylight savings time. Cool. And that was really successful. The last two we had one at Henley Park, and we had one in Orem at the city community center. And I'm glad we did the one in Henley Park, because where we had that all staged, pretty pickleball courts there. So we did it just the next time.
All right, and now we'll turn the time over to Taylor. He's going to do our presentation tonight. We're grateful that he's here, and I'm excited. It's about railroad radio protocols. So take it away, Taylor. There we go.
So to introduce myself, as well as Carson, who I've brought here from UTA. Carson and I have known each other since seventh grade, and we've had a long friendship. And
The microphone's on the other laptop.
it's on the other. Oh, there we go. Yep.
So you can clip it on your shirt, or we can clip it up here.
So we've known each other for a long time, but before we kind of get into that, I have a map up here that shows all, well, for what I could find, okay, I know there's more events than this, but this is kind of a map of where all the different events throughout the year took place. And events are kind of one of the things that's going to be kind of core to this presentation. How many of you were able to help in any UCARES, SAG, UVARC events this year? Raise your hand. Sort of, even sort of. Well, we were really grateful for everybody. And there's tons of different events for whatever fits your fancy, from races to bike races. Yeah, you name it, we do it. In fact, Carson, he'll do the front runner metric, which is like, what is it, 60 miles, 70 miles on bike?
60 miles.
And that is one of the events that Utah SAG helps host, or do the communications for. And so we'll kind of skip here, and we've got this lovely picture. This is from just actually the field out here from one of the events that we did. And kind of core to all of our events, right, is participating in a net. And so my thought is, when Noji asked, like, hey, would you be willing to give a presentation? The first person I thought of, the first topic I thought of was nets, and kind of all the different protocols, because every net is different. Whether you go to the 4th of July parade, where Karen has got multiple nets going on for each of the different positions, or over here, the fireworks, there's multiple nets that are going on that day. This year, what was it, June 10th? I think we had 4 different events going on that day. So there were so many different opportunities and other things for nets. But each net communicates differently. And when you participate in ham radio, you kind of realize we all in many ways fly by the seat of our pants. But, you know, at the same time, we get it done. But so this kind of presentation, as we think, or as Carson here is going to kind of explain Frontrunner's radio protocol. He's worked with Frontrunner for how many years?
5 years.
5 years. He's got a lot of experience. He is, well, I would say you're more than a supervisor, but we'll just say supervisor because none of us need to know the government structure. Are you kidding me? But he's been at UTA for 5 years. He teaches their radio protocol. He knows it inside and out. And there are things that we can learn from Frontrunner because they operate a net 24/7, 365. That's one of the craziest things. I had no clue when he first started working at Frontrunner. If you know, there's no service on Sunday. But yet somebody still has to sit in that control room and man the radio and watch and make sure that the trains sit still or move depending on what they need to do. 24/7, 365. Even on Christmas, you name it, they're still there in the chair. And so I think that that's really interesting and something that we can learn from because they are running a net and they are, well, strict about how their net is run. And there are things that they do for a reason that we as amateurs, we're probably not going to apply all of their, you know, what they do, right? We're different than them. But at the same time, there's things that we can learn that we can see and go, oh, that's interesting, that's a good idea. Maybe the next time I do a net or, you know, run a net or do whatever, I might think about doing that. So with that, I'll kind of turn it over to Carson, and I'll probably interject every now and then, but Carson here knows what the presentation is. So take it away.
Thank you. Cool. All right, yeah, like Taylor said, my name's Carson Casey. I'm with Utah Transit Authority. Specifically Frontrunner. I've been there for 5 years, and I guess just to give you my credentials in this, I started out as an operator or an engineer back in 2018. I did that for 2 years, and then I moved to the dispatch room, where I basically was on, right, you called it a net, right?
Yeah, net.
Call it, right. I was in the control room, dispatching trains, answering the radio for the trains that will call in. I did that for a while, and then I moved into training. And so when we have new engineers, we have new train hosts, we have new employees come in, part of my responsibilities is to teach them radio protocol. And I guess I'll just preface it and say that radio protocol for us is like a full day topic. So my idea kind of with presenting to you today is to talk a little bit about maybe 5% of our actual radio protocol, why we have it, and then the culture behind it. And then I also want to say I have a lot of respect for ham radio operators. I'm working on trying to get my own license, but I was telling Noji like the 2 meter band, like the ohms and calculating the conversion and stuff like that, like right over my head. So mad respect. And to those of you who do help with those SAG events, thank you. That's awesome. I participate in those. So yeah, just to get started, Whenever we start talking about radio protocol with the new employees, we have to mention the regulatory background, and this is a thing a lot of people don't actually realize or notice about us. So obviously, when it comes to radio, the FCC, you know who they are. They regulate us, but really they just assign frequencies and licenses to us, and then it's up to the FRA, which is the Federal Railroad Administration. They're essentially like our governing, well, not essentially, they are our governing body. And what they do is they enforce and regulate. They kind of set the standard for radio protocol for all of the railroads in the country, which is according to the Code of Federal Regulations, the CFRs. The CFRs, by the way, I don't know how best to explain them. The book is like this thick, it's this wide, it's like an 8-point font, and the pages are super thin. But everything in there that you want to know about how to run a railroad is in there, and it's big. So it just outlines specific radio rules, protocol, use equipment, stuff like that. Also, if you want to clear a room out really quick, it's a good way. If you start reading from it, you'll get the room to clear right out. So.
Or courier or something, or everybody else.
Yeah, or everyone fall asleep. Yeah, you'll fall asleep, or the room will clear out. All right, guaranteed. It's great. It's a great text. Anyways, so I guess for this outline a little bit, and the reason I bring up the regulatory information is because, again, a lot of people don't realize how heavily regulated we are when it comes to not just radios, but literally everything. And so, like I said, I'll talk about the specific radio rules, or like 5% of them. But if you have questions about anything, I guess, railroad related, front runner related, if you want to come ask me at the end, I'll be here for a minute. Okay, so for the outline for our radio protocol, all people must use proper identification. Numbers and letters must be stated in communication, with a few exceptions. Employees or people using the radio must receive and initiate transmissions properly, must end transmissions properly, must test radio, do a radio check. I think you guys do something similar, right? Yeah, do a radio check. Monitor the radio. I'm going to stop right here. 99% of our radio protocol and the culture behind the radio protocol we have is just monitoring the radio. In fact, what we tell people when they come into class, for the first time, is if you should be listening to the radio more than you're talking on it, because part of our culture is we want to keep that channel clear. We're running an operation, there's safety critical stuff on there, and so we ask people before they key up or when they're monitoring a radio, if they're going to make a transmission, to ask basically two questions. Number one, is it critical to safety? Number two, is it critical to the operation? And if it's not, we have our employees wait until a different time when they can call on the phone or something. And then for us, emergency transmissions, anytime there's an emergency, you key up the radio and you say emergency, emergency, emergency 3 times, and that's a basically note for all other people on the channel to be quiet. Question?
Are these over the air, or are this through the rail?
This is over the air. So I have my radio right here, and I'll talk about the different channels and I guess nets that we use. But yeah, this is all over the air. Sorry.
They're using a very similar P25 system. Like if you're familiar with their radios are still governed by the state, and they're using some of those trunked systems. Their systems are separate from the police, fire, EMS trunk system. At least that's what we can find from precursory looking at the radio. But yeah, so they're using a separate system that's linked throughout the valley, because as you know, Front Runner runs from Provo to Ogden, and as well as all the buses, tracks, everybody else is also using the same radio system. So they have a lot of links to make that work. If you're ever curious, one of the UTA radio towers is over down here by the bus station, over by Orem Station, and you can see some of that equipment on their tower.
Cool. Okay, so another thing we have to mention when we have employees coming in is the FRA has very strict, we're very strict on radio protocol, and they're very strict on violations. So I just quoted this straight out of the CFRs. I was going to quote the whole thing, but it would be like 20 slides, and then clear the room out, and, for not to do that. So this comes from, I guess, the reference of the CFR, if you're curious. Section 49, subtitle B, Chapter 2, Part 220, or 220.7, which talks about penalties. Meaning, if you violate radio protocols, the FRA can issue you a personal fine of at least $1,052 and not more than $34,401 per violation. That goes on to say if it was willful and if you were essentially if you caused a major train accident because of your poor radio protocol, they can come after you for that. Why it's $1,052, I don't know. The CFRs are really spot on specific about stuff, and that's just one of them. Okay, also our radio channels are all recorded and they are audible by the FRA, meaning the FRA, the Federal Railroad Administration, can come in at any time to us and they can say October 19th, 2019 from 1300 to 1500, give us all of your radio recordings. And they can go through and they can listen to all of them and audit them. And if they find somebody violating the protocol, they can issue them a personal fine, and that's a personal fine, meaning like UTA doesn't pay it, it gets issued to the person, and they have to pay it. Now, I always kind of preface this and say I don't know of anyone who's ever been issued a fine, but they can do that.
Sounds like the FCC.
Yeah. So why we have radio protocol? Very simply, it's for safety. So again, the culture we have is we don't really want the radio to be going off. We want to keep that airwave open. Because if somebody has something critical they need to call in or something major safety related, we want to give them essentially the room to be able to call that in. So radio protocol, it also deters confusion, and I'll talk about why and how that works in a second. And then it encourages simplicity and brevity. So this goes along with the rules being brief, being concise, all promote safety. Because again, the last thing we want to have happen, and this has happened before, and I've been on the channel, I've been in the control room when this has happened. We had some maintenance workers out and they were on the radio and they were just kind of shooting the breeze back and forth about a piece of track they were fixing. And they could have used a different channel, but they were on our critical mainline channel, which is all of our operations are going through. And there was a train that made contact with a vehicle and they weren't able to call it in because these maintenance people were essentially just kind of shooting the breeze, for lack of a better term. So, oh, by the way, I put these in there for my own pride and joy, I don't know. The squiggly line, the 220 is the reference to the CFRs. You don't really need to know that, but why not? Okay, I had it, so I just stuck it in there, okay?
It stands for section. Section,
yes, thank you. Yeah, section 220.27. Call sign and location must be stated first. I know this is different. So when I started at FrontRunner, I was talking to Taylor about ham radio, and this was the first thing that stuck out to me. And I'm like, oh, you guys do it backwards. But then I learned how other people do it, and we do it backwards. And why, I don't know. So for example, tracks, light rail up in Salt Lake, right? The small trains, the toy trains. They do it the other way around. So for us, your call sign and your location must be stated first. So essentially, right, you key up the radio and you announce to everybody my call sign and your location of where you're at.
Here, I want to say something quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I have to interject because Carson and I have been on the phone for hours talking about this presentation, and this has always been something that makes both of us laugh, right, that we're always backwards. And it was just recently when he told me, oh, I recently discovered we are the backwards ones. But what he said was really interesting. He's like, sometimes we'll have to get on the same frequency as a bus, and the bus will say, you know, they'll call out the train first and then say who they are. And then the people on the train, the engineer, he will just completely ignore it because they didn't follow radio protocol. He's like, you didn't say it the right way. And it's just really interesting because, you know, at the same time, part of the reason, as I was talking to Carson, that front runner is backwards from everybody else, is it helps them realize what kind of a resource they're talking to. Without even having to think, they know, oh, this is another front runner employee, or this is not a front runner employee, or this is not a front runner resource. And so it's really interesting, right? All these rules are for clarity and brevity. And it's the same thing for us when we're running a net, right? We always say, you know, say who you're trying to call out. Net control. This is 400 West, or whatever your tactical call sign might be, or your actual call sign. You know, all those are specifically to help us be very brief and concise and know exactly who we're talking to. And it's just really interesting how they do things way backwards.
Yeah, as Taylor said, we're, I guess, the exception. But yeah, we'll be talking to bus, we'll be talking to tracks, and they'll be doing it backwards and be like, what are you talking? And they'll be like, no, they'll call us, and they'll be like, no, you did it backwards. And anyways, it's a bit confusing. The name of the railroad must be included. So again, this rule is set by the FRA. So the FCC didn't set this. This is what the FRA said. No, this is how you have to do it. So the name of the railroad must be included. For us, it's just UTA, the initials of the railroad. So for example, this would be me. So our call signs, by the way, they're just numbers. Your identification, we don't even call them call signs, we just call them identification numbers. So if I were me, I would say UTA, initials of the railroad, 580, which is my call sign at Orem Station or Orem City Hall, we'll get to in a second. So radio base stations must be stated. That means they're written down. To UTA Warm Springs Control. So that is our control room. We always have to say the name. And then ending transmissions for us, and I don't know if this, I can't remember if it's the same for you guys.
Yeah, we don't really do this.
Okay, yeah, we.
Some people do, some people don't.
This is absolutely mandatory for us. Radio transmissions must be complete. That's what the CFR say, meaning you either end a radio transmission with over, meaning you expect a response at the end, or out. The conversation is complete and you're done. I've hung up the phone. The biggest mistake with this that new operators, train hosts and stuff will make is they'll say over and out because they think it sounds cool. It does not sound cool. Essentially you're saying, oh, what do you think of that? And then hanging up the phone. But every radio transmission for us must end with either over or out. And that's just, again, that goes along with the brevity and it deters the confusion because we're like, okay, you're done talking. If you say over, even if you had something else to say, you hold on to it and you wait until that transaction, until they respond to you, basically. Another reason that I've noticed why we have this is several times I've been operating a train, I've been coming into a station, and I've responded, so I've ended my conversation with over, or control called me and they're like, train 3, can you give us the status of whatever, over. And so they're calling me, right, and I'm at the controls of a train, I'm trying to stop the train, I'm preoccupied with watching the child on the platform who's running around, whose parents aren't watching them, making sure I stop where I'm supposed to. And so even though I don't respond right away saying that over, I know that they're done talking and that everyone that's listening on the air is now expecting train 3, me, to respond, even though I can't do it right away. So it allows a little bit of leeway if there's something safety critical in the way, like stopping a train or being preoccupied. So back to this, it would just UTA 580 at Orem Station to UTA Warm Springs Control, over. That's me sticking out my hand, right, saying, hello, control, I'm trying to talk to you. I need you to respond because I have something to say. And then control would simply respond and say, UTA Warm Springs Control, over. And then when the conversation is complete, right, anytime I stop talking, I say over. Anytime they stop talking, they say over. And then when we're done, only one of us says out. That's another mistake new people will make. Oh, both people need to say out. No, only one person needs to say out. Again, some people think that it sounds cool, but to say out and out, no. Anyways, so radio checks for us would look like this. In fact, I can just do one, so that, you know, you can
Let's see if your radio works in the building.
hear. I have a green signal.
Perfect.
Radio has issues. The battery. So the first thing, right, I would do, and you know this, right, you listen long enough because you don't want to step on somebody. Generally what we tell people is to give it about 30 seconds or so, because again, like, train might be pulling into a station, control room might be in the middle of a conversation with somebody, so we tend to try and wait a little bit longer. It's nothing worse than keying up when somebody's in the middle of a conversation. So it looks like it's clear. 580 at Orem to UTA Warm Springs Control for a radio check, over.
UTA Warm Springs Control copies radio check, loud and clear, over.
Copy, loud and clear, 580 out. Just like that. I guess radio did work. They'll probably call me in a minute and be like, what are you doing? Don't worry about it. Okay. Doing a radio check, yeah, I just want to make sure the radio works. Is everything okay? No, okay. Yep, so
But see,
then,
that's confusing to them because they always do a radio check at the start of their shift. And so they're probably like, Carson's not here.
yeah, so I generally work in the office 99% of the time, but anytime we go out into the field, we have to do a radio check so, you know, people know where we are. And so they'll probably call me and be like, what are you doing? And then, yeah, so that's it. The other rule, and this is in the CFRs that I'm bringing up, each radio used in a railroad operation shall be turned on to the appropriate channel as designated and adjusted to receive communications, meaning basically it's required that your radio is on and that you can actually hear it. Occasionally we'll have train hosts that will turn their radio on and then they'll just kind of like turn the volume all the way down. And then we'll be calling them and there'll be a situation and they won't answer, and then we play radio tag and phone tag. It's great. It's not great. Okay, and then also it says this, monitoring the radio is critical to all operations. So again, what we tell our employees, right, if you're going to make a transmission on the radio, make sure it's either safety related, safety critical, or essential to the operation of what we're doing. Because we want to keep that channel clear and open as much as we can. And then an employee shall promptly acknowledge the radio call. It's in the CFRs too. Unless you're like stopping a train. So there's a little bit of leeway, or you know, like you're doing something safety critical, I can't answer you, and so forth. Okay, and then radio calls must be repeated. So if control room were to call me and give me something safety critical, I'd have to repeat back all of those instructions to them, unless we're in a yard moving trains around a train yard. It's a recorded message, or it's just general in nature. I don't know. Train 3, your train house will get on at Salt Lake. It doesn't need to be repeated. So things that do need to be repeated, and this is the other huge part of our protocol, and this is also something the FRA cracks down on really hard. Mandatory directives. So really quick to give you the context, mandatory directives are restrictions that affect the authority of a consist, which just means a train, or a train. So for example, if you're operating a train and you have authority to occupy the track, and for some reason there's a speed restriction, or there's a railroad crossing that's malfunctioning or something, control room will give you what's called a mandatory directive. Mandatory directives must be copied in writing, and they have to be over the radio because the radio is recorded. We'd never do them over the phone. They must be repeated back, and the train must receive an OK time and dispatcher number. And I have gone through in the control room, and every new engineer, train host, or new engineer, I mean, train hosts don't do this. Every new engineer that we've had has inevitably kind of messed this up at first. But when we say they must be repeated back, they must be repeated back verbatim. So exactly what control room says, have like a daily operating bulletin that you pick up every day. If control gives you a mandatory directives, you got to pull out your pen and you literally got to copy it down exactly how they say it. And then when you're done copying it down, you have to repeat it back to them exactly how they said it. If you miss something, like the speed, the authority number, the direction, something specific to the instruction, they will make you repeat it. And I've gone through and I've made a train repeat it back to me 8 times. And that train will just sit there. So the person copying this, the train's not moving, they're just sitting at a station copying this down. But we're incredibly strict about that because, right, if I'm the train and I'm copying something down and I miss and I don't repeat it back verbatim, I could miss something critical to the safety of that and then potentially cause an accident or something. And then once I get it correct, it feels like a game show sometime, like you're guessing the answer. They'll give me an okay time and they'll give me a dispatcher number basically saying that it was correct. And then I have to comply with said restriction until they call me back and tell me it's void. So again, mandatory directives, absolutely critical. And this is another reason we try and keep the channel clear, because if somebody's got to copy a mandatory directive down, it usually takes 30 seconds to a minute. But we always try and keep the radio only for safety critical, which this would be, or essential to operations. Okay, and then really quick, I guess our radio channels, to talk about them, the different, what do you call them, radio channels? Sure. Different radio channels we have. We have FR1, which is the mainline channel, so any train from, essentially any train that is not in the train yard, from Provo to Ogden, any employee, any train host, any operator, any conductor, any maintenance person working in the field, any supervisor working in the field, anyone who's literally working around trains, whether they're cleaning the platform or operating the train or supervising or whatever, must be on FR1. So you can imagine during peak service, we have 10 trains out on the system. There's at least 2 crew members on every train, so there's 20 people right there. There's always 3 field supervisors out, so there's 23. Tons of train hosts out in the system, so there's another 20. All in all, at the end of the day, there's probably about 50 people at a time monitoring this channel. So that's why it's always critical that everyone follows the protocol, essentially get on, state your business, get off. FR3 is for all trains in the yard, so if you're in the train yard, you're on FR3 to know what they're doing, because the radio protocol on FR3 is a little bit different. FR5 is for troubleshooting. So occasionally, right, something will come up. So if you didn't know, the FRA also heavily regulates cell phones. So if you're at the controls of a train, if you're a conductor or engineer, you cannot have your cell phone on your person. It is absolutely 100%, cannot overstate, illegal. Back in 2008, there was the Metrolink train. The engineer was texting on the phone, passed a red signal, overran his limits of authority, caused a major train accident. Ever since then, the FRA is incredibly strict about cell phones. If you're on the clock, your cell phone is off, period. Zero tolerance. So, but occasionally, right, something will the only communication you have then is the radio. So occasionally something will come up where there'll be a need for like troubleshooting, or there'll be a need to like talk a little bit longer than is necessary, or talk about a situation. So for example, if a train breaks down and the operator, the engineer needs to speak with the control room about troubleshooting or something, we'll have them go to FR5 and take them off of the mainline channel onto a different channel, essentially where they can talk longer. Any employee can request to go to FR5 if they have a situation that's a little bit more complex. So again, FR1 is only for short, brief, simple, get on, get off, state your business. Sorry, yes?
So, you're monitoring FR1. Do you have to ask permission to go to FR5? I'm assuming that you do.
Yeah, good question. So if you go to FR5, right, anytime we change radio channels, we always do a radio check. So yeah, you would tell the control room, hey, I'm going to FR5. The control room's supposed to know where you're at all times in case they need to call you. Because we don't want to play radio tag, especially in an emergency. But yeah, essentially, right, the idea is you go on to FR5, you go through your troubleshooting or whatever the issue is, and then you get off FR5 and you go back to FR1. So it's an open channel. by the way, the trains have a radio in them, so every person has a radio with them, and then in the cab of the train, there's a radio too. So you could potentially monitor 2 radios at once. And then channel 97 is for emergencies. So if we have a critical incident, meaning the train makes contact with a vehicle, a washout, something big emergency, the control room will move all of that onto channel 97, pound 97, to try and free up the bandwidth or the air on the other channels on FR1. That's it. Just really quick, I want to say, again, our radio protocol is really strict, and we're very strict on the culture surrounding the radio protocol. So occasionally we'll have issues with people who get on there just kind of to chat. And in that case, we do have to deal with it immediately, because kind of going back to that situation where we had those maintenance people just gone there kind of like, hey, Joe, how's it going? Oh, yeah, great. And they're just kind of shooting the breeze and going back and forth, and there's a train that's having a major emergency. So we try and avoid that at all costs. So that's kind of the culture around it, and that's kind of the protocol. Again, this is only like 5% of actual protocol for us. There's all sorts of rules, and there's rules for like if you're doing like a blasting operation, you know, TNT or stuff, or like going over a drawbridge, and we don't have drawbridges, so we don't worry about it. We don't usually blow things up either, so don't worry about it. Yeah.
So, are there any less strict rules for, like, you know, amateur railroad?
The pump carts, right? The little 7.5 inch.
Any questions, comments, things that you might have connected to a net?
Do you have any, like, a list of reserve words that you use, wait, Roger, those kind of?
Like code words or like?
Yeah, code words.
Yeah, so we do have a few code words that we use. I can't tell you what they are, but we do have them. And then we also try and use the phonetic alphabet as much as we can. Sometimes, so for us, I don't know about you guys, but if we're saying a number and it's exact a multiple of 100, then we can just say 600 instead of 600. And then periods, you know, point, dot, decimal must be said dot or decimal or point. Yeah.
So I'm assuming that not all railroads are equal when it comes to the radio, because I know that I can monitor Union Pacific. They have analog frequencies that they use. So, and you guys are apparently on digital. So there has to be some disparity between different organizations on the railroad.
Yeah, so there is a little bit of a difference, right? So I talked a lot about our culture. The rules I mentioned up there are the absolute rules. Union Pacific runs a bit of a different operation than us. In fact, you may not know this, in the middle of the night, they come over onto our track to access some things on the other side of us that they can't get to in the day because our track is in the way. A lot of times, I know a lot of the channels you can monitor with Union Pacific are their yard channels. Yes. Radio protocol on the yard channel is a lot more relaxed. And there's a reason for that. If you're out in the train yard and you're telling a train that they're okay to back up, you don't want to go through this big, handshake of here's my call sign and here's where I am, right? You want to get off the channel as fast as you can because you want to tell that train to stop if they're going to run over something or someone. So yeah, there's a bit of a difference for us, right? The culture is really what we focus on, but those are the rules. The FRA has never had a problem with us and radio protocol, to my knowledge. Yes.
Do you ever have any problems with non-railroad employees on the frequencies, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so occasionally we'll have like an employee who doesn't know our radio protocol somewhere else in the company that will come on. Like, for example, a few months ago we had video security that does CCTV get on. They had to get on our channel because they needed to know where our trains were, and they didn't know anything about our radio protocol. So they essentially would key up and be like, hey, this is Joe. I'm just calling control. I want to let you know that we're down here in Provo. we put a stop to that pretty quick. That was one phone call, and they were off, and we're not supposed to give people radios if they don't know how to use it. So, yeah, we do run into that with like other departments who don't work in commuter realm.
You ever have anybody sitting on mics?
Yes, I have listened to somebody get GPS directions before and get off the freeway. I've overheard somebody on the phone, having a conversation that probably shouldn't have been broadcast to everybody before. So when I talked about that incident with the train, who had the supervisor or the maintenance people on, just kind of shooting the breeze. It was a little bit different back then, but now we have this orange button. So, right, you can, if I hold it down, it will send out an emergency alert and essentially kick anybody else who's talking off the radio and let me talk.
Don't you wish we had that for some events?
So yeah, now when we listen to the GPS and directions or the conversation, we shouldn't hear. We use that orange button, but it only gives you so much time. So if they're not aware that they're keyed up, it'll give you like 30 seconds, and then it'll just key them back up, and you'll hear them talking. And our radios have GPSs in them, so we know who's talking when, right? And if somebody does that, we can track them down and address that. Yeah.
Going back to that orange button, I work at the hospital with you, and we've had people go in, I think they were using that orange button to power the radio off. Have you had that happen too?
Not to my knowledge. That's a good question. Occasionally you'll just be going along and you'll hear that emergency like alert key up, and you'll be like, oh, what's going on? And then nothing happens. Yeah, people just being like, oh, what does this do? And then, oh crap. You know what that does now. So.
It's like somebody with a new bell pen.
Yeah.
How many different railroads are operating in Utah, and what are they? So there's like UTA, Union Pacific, Amtrak?
Yeah, so obviously there's us. Union Pacific owns the majority of the track out here. There's also Utah Railway, which is a short line. They have orange. Their locomotives are orange. They usually run in the middle of the night, so you don't really see them. BNSF runs out here. But in terms of like the big railroads, or the notable railroads, it's just us and Union Pacific. Yeah.
How do you know where the trains are on the track?
Yeah, so good question, yeah. In the control room, so the way the track works for us and for other railroads, it's a little bit different. So there's a GPS in the locomotive. It's not always reliable. The rails actually will send out a signal in them, and when the train goes over the rails, it goes into what we call different cut sections. So it's just like essentially just for electrical circuits, right? So when it passes into one cut section, it shunts the track and disrupts the circuit. It sends a signal back to the control room that says, hey, on this section of track, there's something that's occupying the rails here. I'm not saying it's a train, but most likely it's a train, but there's something shunting the track.
What incident caused that regulation?
So that's part of what we call PTC, positive train control. That essentially it prevents operator error from making critical mistakes. So for example, if there's a red signal on the track, right, red signal, same as a red light on a traffic light. Problem is, right, with the trains are big, they're heavy, right, physics, so it takes longer to slow down a train. These cut sections are set up so the train will go over the cut section. There'll be a signal in the track that says, hey, the speed limit on this section of track is 45 miles an hour. And then it will tell the operator, hey, it's 45 miles an hour. If you don't slow down, we're going to shut you down, meaning the train's just going to come to a stop. And as it approaches cut sections that are getting close to like that red signal, or what we would say where the authority ends on the track, it will shut them down to 0 speed. It'll make them stop. So it's part of positive train control. Yeah.
Now, some of them, like tracks, for example, tracks has electric above.
Right, the catenary, yeah.
Don't these have diesel to power them?
Yep, diesel. So essentially a locomotive is just a power plant on wheels. So there's just a big diesel engine in the back that converts to electricity, that takes the electricity and turns the wheels.
So how can it shut it down? It just has the communication to shut it down?
Yeah, so we have in the cab what we call cab signals, and those are the authority, right? So we have two different types of systems. We have the wayside signals, the track side signals, right? The green, yellow, red. Green is on the top. Traffic lights are backwards. Railroads had them first, just so you know. So green on the top, yellow, red essentially means similar to the same thing, right? Green, your track is clear. Yellow, your next signal is going to be red. And then red obviously means stop, some variation. So the way it works is there's a little like sensor on the front of the wheel here. I have a close up. Yeah, you won't see it. There's a little sensor on the front of the wheel that shoots like a laser down onto the track, and then it tells, again, the track through the computer electric signals, tells the train how fast it can go, and then it tells the operator, and then it's cut into the brakes. So, right, the operator can apply the brakes, but it also there's a valve in there, and I don't know the specific details, but there's a valve in there that will just open up.
These trains have a lot of computers in it because he's opened up the panel, and you've got different servers in there just for the train. A server for PTC that is communicating with the rail and with their control center. And if the train says it's supposed to stop, it's going to stop the train. Like it won't even let the driver put it in gear. Well, there is no gear, but apply power unless the control center says they can. And so it's really interesting to kind of see that and how. As was mentioned, right, there's been incidents in the past that make all this technology mandatory, but, it's just really interesting to kind of see how they use it now and when it works and when it doesn't work.
Yeah, so if you've ever ridden the train before and you're coming into Murray Station, you'll notice the train goes from like 79 down to 15 miles an hour. It's excruciating coming northbound. That's because of PTC, and essentially what it is saying is, at Vine Street, which is a railroad crossing just north of Murray Station, we try and keep that crossing non-occupied because of the hospital. So we don't want to like rush in there, draw the gates down, and then sit there while the gates are down and then leave unnecessarily. So PTC says, well, if the gates aren't going to come down until later, it's going to force the train to step down 15 miles an hour. Excruciating sometimes, it's slow, but whatever. And it's also, I guess it's also important to note PTC and the safety mandated systems, right? That's great, it works the most of the time, but what we tell new engineers is that don't rely on this stuff. We still need you to be a competent engineer. You still have to know the speed limits and stuff, because occasionally sometimes this stuff doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, we will pull the train out of service, but we still have to get the train back to where we can pull it out of service. So I guess that's in a nutshell how it works.
Any other net radio questions, things people might have noticed and said, that's interesting that you run your nets that way, or this, that, or the other? Or any other questions?
I got one more question that caused me to think of it a minute ago. As far as malfunctions, many of us have seen malfunctions where crossings are down and never go up.
Yep.
You're kind of wondering what's going on down the track, wondering if it's ever going to lift.
Go on, yeah.
I'm sure that can happen in reverse as far as malfunctions, where the gate might not go down in a case. So when you guys become aware of that, is that when they get, their authority throttled or whatever in those kind of conditions?
Yeah, so usually what happens with the crossings is the default setting for the crossing gates, the mast, is actually to be down, and they have batteries on them. So where if for any reason they lost communication, there was any sort of error, they would just go down. And usually that's what you run into, right? You come up to a crossing, the gates are down. There's like, where's the train? It's very, very rare that a crossing will malfunction while the gates are up. It's happened to us twice, but both times were human error, meaning the person went and actually turned the crossing off, which was obviously huge no-no. But in times, what happens, right, so if the crossing malfunctions, the gates go down, absolute worst case scenario in that is that the gates will just drop down, so the counterweight actually holds the gate up. If it loses power, loses all battery power, it can't even, the lights can't even flash, the gate will just come down, and I've never seen that happen. But what tends to happen, right, when that malfunctions, the gates are down, the lights are flashing, there's no train. People start driving around the gates, which you shouldn't ever do, by the way. Incredibly stupid. But people will start driving around the gates. So we'll put what we call a crossing protection on, which is a mandatory directive. The control room will call the train at the station before, and they'll say, hey, at 820 North in Provo, there's a crossing protection on. They'll give them specific instructions. The train will either have to stop before it gets to the crossing and someone will have to like physically wave it through, or the train will go 15 miles an hour sounding a horn sequence. Anytime we have a crossing malfunction or a mandatory directive on that, the train slow down, the PTC through the track and the cut sections will force the train to slow down, and then the operator is required to sound a specific horn sequence, even though it's a quiet zone. That doesn't mean anything.
We got time for like one more question.
Yeah.
How close can a following train travel?
Good question. So it depends on the system, right? Obviously, trains, we split out into what we call block sections. So essentially from, let's say, Provo, where the switch is at Provo to where the track starts. So we go from 2 tracks in Provo and the station, it goes into 1 single track, and then it goes into 2 tracks again before Orem Station. Between each set of signals is what we call a block section, and only 1 train is allowed to occupy the block at a time. So if the train's in the block section, the signal behind the train will be red. And it's literally impossible. It's soldered, wired against it. You cannot make it turn green.
I got one more follow-up question quick. I know there's a law that says that they cannot block an intersection for, I think it's 10 minutes, is that correct?
Yep, so yeah.
When do we call, my question is, when do we call 911?
So don't call 911. For that, if you Google, pull out your phone, obviously while you're not driving your car, right, you're stopped and in park. If you pull out Google and you search railroads.gov blocked crossing, you can pull it up and report it there. I will tell you though, we don't ever block crossings for 10 minutes because we don't want to do that. We got places to be.
You're not Union Pacific.
Union Pacific will block crossings. Yes, they do that. It's frustrating to us because, right, people are like, oh, this train's not moving and it's blocking the crossing. So then they walk through it, and then we're coming on the other track, and now there's people walking through it, so it creates a hazard. Union Pacific does have a lot of leeway, I'll tell you, because they're kind of grandfathered in. They essentially have had their tracks laid before any of those rules really existed. But you can still report it. The feds keep track of that. Railroads.gov, blocked crossing, make a report, turn around. In fact, some streets, as you know, you shouldn't just even, 200 West in Provo, don't even try it. Just go to University, don't. 17th South in Salt Lake, yep, that's a notorious one, just 1300 South.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much.
All right, thank you so much, Carson and Taylor. You know, okay, in reality, my question about the amateur railroad was actually a serious question because, I mean, I know nothing about trains, okay? So I guess what you're saying is there's no such thing as amateur railroad? Okay, just curious, so.
There's model railroad, that's what's.
Model railroad, so, okay, yeah. All right, well, thanks, appreciate you guys. Awesome presentation. All right, door prizes. Let me, first of all, find out who does not have a ticket.
Got one.
I got
Okay.
While we're doing that, I just want to thank Ralph. He's up here every month, well, usually back there, offering to program radios, brings his cables and his computer. Thanks, Ralph, for doing that for us.
Are you doing the actual drawing?
Yeah,
Let's go ahead and put this on you.
Thanks. And then, you know, and Trevor does this thankless job over here every month, setting up our AV and everything, and he does an incredible job. He's so smart, and he brings his knowledge from work to here. It's just an extension of his job. And so thanks for doing work away from work, Trevor. Appreciate you so much. Okay, we only have a few minutes, and we're going to mix it up this time with door prizes. We're going to do it a little bit differently because now that Brent's not here, I'm going to take the liberty of doing it just my way. So now that you all have your tickets, what I'm going to do is make all of them random. Even the grand prize, there won't be any grand prize. So you can pick between so this is a headlamp. You can choose what this. This is a computer. This is a Windows 10 computer. It's a computer, okay? This is a Club Light, not to be mistaken for a Bud Light. You can't drink it, but it does work. And we also have a $50 gift card. And yes, you can pick this too. So, I mean, which would you choose? The light. But anyway, so here you go. Now, you might think that this is candy. This is actually a meal in a bag, okay? So it's a lifesaver. You know, if you have, you know, a terrible night sometime, maybe you're stuck, survival, right? You know, preparation kit. You know, okay, if you're in a diet, a year supply. So yeah. We have a dual band, dual watch, amateur radio, transceiver, right here. You can pick one of these. So if you don't have one, you can pick one. Or if you have 15, you can pick this too. So if you get picked, you can choose any one of these prizes, including the Pocris J-pole. I mean, you know, who wouldn't want one of these things, right? Okay, Carl's got 15, but that doesn't matter. So you can pick this right here, and it comes with free installation. Yes, you bet. So any one of these prizes you can pick, provided your number is chosen. And here we go. First of all, do we have any pickers out there? Who would like to pick a number? I'm going to give you 3 seconds. 2, 1. Okay, I'm the picker. Did you have someone in mind, Chad? Miles? Are you a good picker, Miles? Okay, let's see if Miles is a good picker, and we'll test his ability. So Miles.
So I volunteered you, you better pick mine.
Okay, so Miles, Chad, right over there. But I'll put down my pointer if you don't mind. All you need to say is the last 3 numbers. Okay, he's not peeking, nothing up his sleeve, nothing up your sleeve, right? And the number is?
329.
329. Oh my gosh. 329. Ralph is the winner.
Put that right there.
Okay. You can pick any of these prizes. You can't pick the monitor, that belongs to the city, darn it. But this.
I'll take the M&Ms.
All right, very good. All right. Oh, you know what? I did fail. Just because I didn't see it here. Just to be fair, there was one more prize. I think it's still in my bag. So stand by.
Insulin.
That goes with the bag. So this is a 1-year annual ARRL membership. You can choose from that. So Ralph, you can still choose M&M's, ARRL, you know. So there you go.
I'll take the M&Ms.
M&M's it is, okay. Wait, where'd Miles go? Miles, you have a permanent place in our heart, but you know what? You have a semi-permanent place right here in this chair. So Miles, the next number is?
Whatever landed on the floor? Sure. 353.
353. Who's got?
Again, that one wasn't given away.
Wait. It wasn't given away?
No, I had 3 in my hand, nobody showed up. Come on.
Hey, at least he's honest.
Wait. Okay, another number. Go ahead, Miles. I don't even know where my ticket is.
327.
Stan the man.
One of the greatest Chevrolet engines built, 327. If not the
All right, what's it going to be, Stan?
What's the gift card for?
What is it for?
Yeah.
It's for you if you pick it.
To be used where?
To be used at your favorite 7-Eleven
Really?
or Walmart or
Really?
Target or Winco.
Is it a Visa
It's a
gift
Winco
card?
card.
Is it a Winco?
I think so, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I'll take that. Yeah.
He's going to take it. All right, congratulations. Way to go, Stan. Okay, the next number is
342.
342. Carson. Hey, an illegal railroad radio, computer, a light, headlamp, or the antenna.
Better take the radio so that you have motivation to get your license.
I actually do have a radio.
That was a good Christmas gift a long time ago.
Okay, he picks the club light. Congratulations, Carson. All right, Mr. Miles, the next number, please.
Alrighty
It is
348.
348. You know, okay. What is your name? I never did. John. Don.
Yep.
Don. Congratulations, Don. What's it going to be? You got the headlamp, the radio, ARRL, and the antenna.
I really like that ARRL membership.
Okay, ARRL membership it is.
Thank you.
Please fill it out and get it to me before the end of this meeting.
Okay.
Hold up. There we go. That's a thing.
All right, congratulations, Don.
And we got
The next number is
345. 345.
345, right in a row.
Somebody need to shake that bucket up right.
I'm trying. Nobody? Going once?
That doesn't qualify.
What was that number?
349. I mean 5.
5. 345.
Twice. 3 times. Gone. Okay, next one, Miles.
Three, 4-0.
Tom. 340. Okay, Tom, it's going to be tough. We're down to the last 3.
I already have a J pole.
Last 4.
You already have a J-pole?
Yeah.
Now there's a radio and the headlamp.
And the computer.
Oh, and the computer. I forgot.
Computer.
Sorry. Thanks, Miles. Okay, there we go.
There we go.
Windows 10 made in America, the computer made in China. What can possibly go wrong? Good computer.
It blows up.
It should work for you if you do FT8. All right, the next number is
319.
319. Linda, congratulations. You need another J-pole, don't you?
Hey, I want another light. Is that a light? I want the light.
Yeah, that's a headlamp.
All right, hold it up. There we go, thank you.
She's got the light of her life. Very good, Linda. Congratulations. All right, we're down to the last 2. Here we go. And we're almost out of time.
317.
317. Steve Areno. This is tough because with the antenna, he can't do CW much. And the radio, he can't do CW at all. And he's a CW man. Hey, congratulations. Steve, we're going to have your picture taken here.
Hold it up. There we go.
All righty. For the last and final
Who
prize.
gets the J-pole?
I hold in my hand.
332.
332. The lucky winner is Jill. Now, Jill, before I hand this to you, I just have one question. So how many of these have you won in this meeting? This is probably the fourth one, right?
I don't know.
Congratulations, Jill, the proud owner. And thank you so much, Miles, for being a good sport. I'll turn the time back over to Karen.
All right, well, we want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and spending your Thursday evening with us. And we're going to go ahead and QSY over to Apollo Burgers, which is just down the street from us. But I would also like to thank, Heath is usually here with us, but he is out of town. And so we actually have someone here from Orem Fire Department, Derek Spencer. So we definitely want to say a great thank you for him spending his Thursday afternoon letting us into the building. So with that, we'll say good night and see you all next month.
Put up the chairs.